Is your orgasm destroying your relationship? Um, I know how controversial this may sound, and you're you can just, take whatever resonates with you, and if it doesn't resonate with you, it's fine. Um, However, I'm going somewhere with this. Hello and welcome to the second episode in this series of Why Do Relationships Fail? So let me back up a little bit here. So by orgasm, mostly I mean ejaculation, okay? So you can have a dry orgasm for men without releasing the sexual energy, okay? So that's what I mean by orgasm. Of course, you can feel pleasure all the time. Sex is meant for that, but you don't have to release the sexual energy. And especially when it comes to men, because men's ejaculation and orgasm is very different from women's, but I'm not going to go through this in depth in this video. So let's back up a little bit here and just draw some foundation. So not very long ago, the courting process, and before all this plethora of dating apps and online dating, in most of cultures, courting has it had its weighing, okay? So people court for some time, and even in so many cultures until now, men pay a lump sum of money, which is dowry. And this happens to kind of in these cultures to glorify and draw importance on the union, the consummation of marriage or this union. And I'm not talking in a Puritan kind of way or in a religious kind of way or in a traditional kind of way, which is putting the woman's virginity on a pedestal. Not at all, not my perspective. My perspective is the process of getting to know somebody thoroughly enough before having a physical connection used to take much longer time. And on why is this important? Because on an energetic level, the energy, the sexual energy and the attraction and the desire that is important at the beginning to kickstart any relationship, especially for men, because men are visual and the energy travels from down side up, where for women the energy travels, the feminine energy travels from from up and till down to down. So the thing is they meet at the heart chakra, so there is some kind of a green ray activation, so there is some kind of bonding that already happened before the sexual encounter takes place. And this is important. Why? Because on an energetic level, on a biochemical level, there are pre-com and post-com, two different people, two different men. And I've experienced this day in and day out so many times, how that men completely change after ejaculation. They would be all very, lovey-dovey and very eager and very loving, and then after they ejaculate, they mostly, even they are unaware of that, they are just, most of them act unconsciously, they become so aloof, so distant. And what happens here is a change of perspective on a biochemistry level. I'll put a link below to a conversation that I had with my buddy Akal, sexual transmutation guru, on this subject, that we go into depth what happens. And what happens is some scientists actually took a shot of a man's brain while having a very strong orgasm, and the event for the brain, it was like shooting heroin, it's a huge event. It's a huge surge of pleasure in the brain when a man ejaculates. Okay, so for women, what happens is we have a huge surge of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. So we bond more, and you can take a look at this. And personally, I used to observe this with myself and other women, that sometimes the man, he's not we're not into him, we're not a 10 about him, like on a scale from 1 to 10, we're not a 10 about him. And most women tend, if they have good sex with that man, tend to completely shift and fall in love with his potential. Because what happens is we have this surge of oxytocin. We tend to bond so closely with men, and I'm talking generally speaking here, I'm talking about most women. And also the orgasm differs from one woman to another. So some women, if they have sometimes cervical orgasm in contrast to clitoral orgasm, so I'm talking about vaginal orgasm, sometimes, and if they squirt, their perception and the chemistry of the brain can change in a different way. They can perceive the man, they can be also distant and aloof, and they just want to, kind of end the whole thing and just leave the bed, take a shower, and don't have any emotional attachment. And some women, when they have this kind of very strong orgasm, because oxytocin shoots up really in a very high dosage compared to men, they tend to bond so strongly with men. And actually, as I said, they tend to fall in love with his potential. They see him on a completely different level, completely different perspective. That is not really who he is. It's just the biochemistry changed. We tend to bond so closely when it comes to oxytocin. So that is why I'm saying let's back up, because before that happens, and in traditional societies, people used to court, so they used to get to know each other, they used to bond, they used to already have a foundation. Why should I fall in love with that man, or why did I pick this woman? So when the sex happens, it happens when there is a foundation. Even if the man feels this distance, or he feels like, oh my god, I need to roll over and sleep, I don't want to see that woman, really, this is sometimes how they feel. And there's perspective shift. They start seeing your flaws, or they start thinking, oh my god, how did I sleep with that woman? It's actually not them, it's their biochemistry in the brain completely shifted. Like this surge, this event happened, and it changed his perspective about you. And but when there is this bonding and love and already foundation of empathy and compassion, they tend to stay and cuddle, and they want to connect more. So that is how important it is to build a foundation before getting physically involved with someone. Because, and I always put these, let's say, if they are theoretical concepts, to test in my tantra classes with couples. So when I do tantra classes with couples, and we start off by breathing together, by eye gazing, by sometimes kriya yoga, and sometimes by meditation, and meditating together and connecting that link, then touching without lips, and then touching without hands, and touching with the nose, where the pleasure is the destination and not the orgasm. I always ask them every step of the way, how attracted you are you to your partner now, on a scale of 1 to 10. And I always ask every step of the way. And because in my tantra classes, especially men are not hyper focused on their genitalia. The men tend to be hyper focused on their penis, on their cock. They want to be touched all the time. They think that it's the only way to bring them pleasure. No, no. And if one of the partners are stuck in this dynamic and is in a rush, the whole process is ruined. So in my tantra classes, I always ask, like, how do you feel? Do you feel pleasure? And so many couples, and men specifically, were mind blown about the amount of pleasure they can feel without being like their genitalia being stimulated. Women too, that they can feel all this pleasure without their genitalia being stimulated, or without being touched on the breast or the regular places that men used to touch them on. So this is an invitation for you to have sex and to explore sex in a different way. And if you need to go into depth with that, and if you need to have more tips, and if you need to go into the sequence of how to do that, please feel free to contact me, DM me on Instagram, private message me on Facebook, or contact me on my website, askamira.ca. And I would love to walk you through the sequence of how to explore different kinds of pleasure, and not to think that your relationship is broken or something wrong with it. It's the biochemistry, it's your perspective. So yeah, so this is another way to look at why do relationships fail, without blaming ourselves and falling into this rabbit hole of guilt and shame. Namaste. See you in the next video.